Good evening. My name is Angie Brenner. I'm the city librarian for Mill Valley, and I'm so pleased to welcome all of you to the latest installment of Naked Truth, the library's true live storytelling series in which our invited storytellers are naked. Metaphorically speaking, because they tell stories without props, without notes, and they have nothing to hide behind. Tonight's program is made possible through generous and ongoing support and funding from the Mill Valley Library Foundation and the Friends, the library's two fabulous support groups. If you're interested in becoming a friend or you would like to donate to the foundation, you can find more information on our website at millvalleylibrary.org. We also have some board members in the audience tonight. If they could just stand up briefly. One in the back. Over there. You can corner them during intermission and they'd be happy to give you more information. I'd also like to tell you about an upcoming event that we recently scheduled. We're pleased to announce that on Thursday, November 8th, the library will be hosting the West Coast launch of Best American Poetry 2012, an after-hours event in this room starting at 7 p.m. We'll have an impressive lineup of poets, including former poet laureate Kay Ryan, California Book Award winner and Mill Valley resident Jane Hirschfield, and Pulitzer Prize winner Ray Armentrout. Registration for this event will open on this coming Monday, as will registration for our next First Friday misrepresentation. So we're inviting anyone who has a good library story or would like to go on record as to why they love the Mill Valley Public Library to consider having their story taped in the area kind of to the left of the wine bar. And you could do that during intermission or after the event tonight. And now I would like to turn over the microphone to the curator of Naked Truth, the fabulous cbrancoli.
Thank you very much, Angie. So this is an amazing turnout, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight for this very special edition of Naked Truth. And I do want to begin by thanking Litquake for including us on their schedule this year. And it really is an honor to be part of San Francisco's premier literary festival. So I would also like to extend a sincere thank you to the storytellers who are here tonight. They are all volunteering their time to share their stories with you. So I'd like to thank Anthony Bedard, Heather Gold, Joe Loya, Madison Perry, and a very, very last minute, within the past 2 minutes, addition of Mariko Tamaki, who has agreed to replace Lisa Marie Rollins, who couldn't be here tonight. So thank you very much. As you know, our fabulous raconteurs will recount rebellious tales based on tonight's theme, Breaking the Rules. We'll have a 10-minute intermission tonight at about 7:45 or 8, and this will be a chance for you to get another glass of wine, which might encourage you to put your name in the hat for a lightning round. The theme for the lightning round is your elevator pitch, and that's in honor of this evening's co-presenter, the Mill Valley Film Festival. So you will tell us a 2-minute story that would make a great movie. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first storyteller. This is his second time telling a story at Naked Truth. He is the guitarist and vocalist for Hank 4 and the drummer for the Icky Boyfriends. He books bands at the Hemlock Tavern and comedy for Club Chuckles. He is the co-founder of the Coalition for Aging Rockers, and he is a fabulous storyteller. Please join me in welcoming Anthony Bedard.
Thank you, Kara. Here we go. A little room to work with. When I first started attending college in the early 1980s, I never dreamed that Spuds MacKenzie, the Budweiser original party animal, would one day save me from being evicted from university housing. I was breaking a lot of rules in those days. My undergraduate advisor at the time was the noted anarchist historian Howard Zinn, author of The People's History of the United States. He's a mentor, advisor, big influence on my life. And Howard had a take on rules, and in a nutshell, he thought that if there was a rule, like or a law, for example, that you thought was unjust, that you had a moral right or an obligation to act against that rule or law, such as if there's a law that is in favor of slavery, that you can act in accordance with your moral code to work against that, and that you are morally in the right. So that was sort of Howard's take, and like I said, he's an anarchist. And so around that time, and the president of Boston University at the time, his name was John Silber. And Silber was basically the polar opposite of Howard. John was an authoritarian personality. He was affiliated with the Reagan-Bush administrations. He was in favor of military intervention in Afghanistan. He supported the right-wing dictatorships in Central America. He supported the government of South Africa during the heyday of the apartheid era. And he loved to find ways to exact revenge on students and faculty who either spoke out against him or against the university's policies. So around my sophomore year, I got involved with student government at Boston University. And I booked a lecture series that did pretty well. I brought the New Zealand ambassador. I brought a series of ambassadors who had critical things to say about the United States or policy disagreements with the United States. I brought them to campus, and it was a big hit series. And somehow, that led to the outgoing president of the College of Liberal Arts Student Government pulling me aside one day and saying, "Hey, Anthony, would you be interested in being the president of the College of Liberal Arts Government next year?" And I was like, "No way." I was like, "What? You don't want to do it?" No, I'm not interested in running for anything or against anybody or making any promises. He said, "What if I could tell you that you would run unopposed? And not only would you run unopposed, you would have a $25,000, $30,000 budget to spend next year, no questions asked." Not having to answer to anybody, I said, "I'm very interested in both of those things." And so the next year I came back, my junior year, the newly installed. I was worried there for a minute. Even like on the day of the election, I was like sweating bullets, thinking that somebody's going to come out of the woodwork and oppose me at the last minute, and but nobody did, and so I was installed as the president, as it were, and given a budget. Now there was a university large student government, but this was a smaller college government. So basically, it was $5 a head for the 5,000 students in the college. So that was the $25,000 budget. And I said to myself, as inspired by Howard, that I was going to go and spend that money on the most liberal left-wing programming that I possibly could to basically do battle with the the right-wing forces who ran the university. We brought people to campus like Angela Davis, the journalist Alexander Coburn, Julian Bond, the radical feminist poet Adrienne Rich. And and not only were we creating original programming, but more importantly, we were even giving money to all the radical student groups that had no hope of ever getting a dime out of the university. The Radical Black Student Union, Radical Feminists. I mean, I'm serious. And these were groups with some intellectual radical agendas and wanted to put on programming that the university was absolutely going to shut down or not approve. So all of a sudden, there's this wellspring of $25,000, and we're spending it as we see fit and causing quite a stir on campus for a previously, unknown, small college student government. So at this time, or around this time, the president of BU, John Silber, decided that he was going to award a humanitarian degree to the president of El Salvador, Jose Napoleon Duarte. And this is like in 1985, 1986. So some of you may remember that this was the height of the death squad era in El Salvador. Thousands of people were disappearing, being murdered, tortured, mass graves, people just disappearing, and it was a horrible political situation for which the United States was largely responsible and contributed quite a bit of money and political cover for. And Silber said, well, you know, and this was his way. This was totally his style. Was like, not only, Napoleon Duarte is a humanitarian, and I'm going to give him an honorary degree. So everybody is completely outraged, myself included. And with about a week or two's notice, I pulled together a multi-part lecture series that examined different areas or facets of the political situation in El Salvador. And Howard Zinn even said, well, why don't you go see Noam? See if you can talk Noam Chomsky into coming over here. My buddy Noam. And so next thing you know, he puts the word in for me, and I'm take the trek over to MIT across the river. And one afternoon, I find myself sitting across the desk in Noam Chomsky's office. This is a man who was booked years into the future. And I, basically explained the situation to him, asked him if he wouldn't mind canceling some previous engagement. So intimidated. I mean, he's a man of few words. Howard is very gregarious and outgoing, very warm and personable, and Noam is obviously, he's a little more austere and kind of reserved. So I'm totally sweating bullets, and Dr. Chomsky, if you would consider canceling your appointment and coming over here and speaking at our event. And he's, oh, yeah, okay, I think I will. I think I'll do. And I was shocked. I was like, what? You will? So all of a sudden, we've got a lecture on our hands that was attended by, basically the night before Napoleon Duarte shows up in Boston to receive this high-profile honorary degree. We've got an even bigger public event. Thousands of people attended, one of the biggest lecture halls in the Boston University campus, and it wasn't just students. It was people from all over Boston and Cambridge, the public, huge press coverage. It was a major public relations black eye for the university to have their visiting dignitary taken down by Noam Chomsky, America's foremost foreign policy critic, on the eve of his visit. And I have to admit, like I said, the whole thing came together kind of last minute, right? We had to move quick, cut a few corners here and there, and I think at this point I have to admit I was not following all the rules and regulations of good student government. I was actively ignoring many rules and regulations of good student governance, and most importantly, and most unforgivably, I was ignoring Robert's Rules of Order. So, not liking the way that I did things, or perhaps even my political bent, two people in the student government ratted me out to the dean. My attitude was, I hadn't promised anybody anything. I ran unopposed. I could do whatever. That's my thinking. I'll do whatever in the hell I want. But then next thing I know, I'm getting called in front of the dean, and I'm being threatened with removal from office for failure to adhere to the student code of conduct and the rules of student governance. So, I talked my way out of it. I got called back in there several times over the next few months, and it really was kind of an increasingly, tenuous situation for me. And so what I did was I stacked the deck with more friends of mine who I knew were going to vote in my favor, vote for my proposals for this slate of ultra left-wing programming, and I just kept on doing what I was doing. So this really put me on the university shit list. They were at this point they were very, very unhappy with me, and I was a marked man. Okay, the other big political issue at the time was divestment in South Africa. Now, people may remember divestment was a political movement in colleges and universities where the students were attempting to talk their colleges into divesting themselves of any financial holdings or activity in South Africa as a way of putting pressure on the South African government to end the regime of apartheid. And it was a national issue. It was a hot button issue. It wasn't necessarily my issue. I was more concerned with some other things at the time, but I supported that thing in general. And of course, John Silber, the president of BU, turned around and said, not only will we not divest in South Africa, I am announcing a new policy of increased investment for the government of South Africa. And people lose their minds. So there's the big student activist on this particular issue. His name was Joseph Abramowitz. He was in the theology school. And Joseph was a high visibility. He was not only just locally, but nationally, he was known for being a leading student activist in the anti-apartheid movement. So Joseph was like a high profile, public relations, letters to the editor, public events and all this kind of stuff. And then he made the mistake of hanging a bunch of signs and banners in his window and off of his balcony that urged BU to divest. And BU subsequently notified him that he was in violation of a very mysterious regulation or rule that was on the book, which later became known as the BU banner policy. That basically there was a policy on the books which prohibited any student from hanging a sign or a poster or a banner in your window or off the balcony. We were an urban school mixed in with the city architecture, and so I think this was a way that they thought up to basically kind of keep the university looking good on the outside mixed in with the rest of the city buildings. But the reality was they had actually selectively enforced their own policy to discriminate against Joseph on the basis of his political content. This is not surprising given the whole history at Boston University, but that's what they did. And so he refused to take down the signs and banners. They kept telling him, he said no, they kept telling him, and then finally they came into his room, physically confiscated the banners, and they expelled him from housing. And this is all for basically hanging a sign that said, "BU divest." And meanwhile, across town, in a much nicer section of the campus where I lived, I was fully outraged. And I said, well, this is bullshit. Joseph has the right to say whatever he wants. And I took a bed sheet off my bed, and I spray painted a pro-Joseph slogan in like 3 colors of spray paint. And I hung it off the balcony. Historic Bay State Road, like the painted ladies, here in San Francisco, out in, Alamo Square. So like Bay State Road is that kind of a road in Boston with these gorgeous brownstones, a historic neighborhood, and all of a sudden this ugly ass sheet, with 3 different colors of spray paint with kind of a First Amendment message, if you will. And I came home I put the banner up and left for class. I came home later that afternoon and saw that the banner was missing. I went into my dorm room. The banner had been confiscated by university officials, and there was a letter for me announcing that I, too, had just been expelled from housing. And so at this point, I was really starting to get worried. I called my parents. My parents are freaking out. What got you expelled from housing? What did you do? What happened? And it's like they didn't have any money to put me up anywhere else. Where was I going to go? Was I going to be able to graduate? Couldn't I just dial it back a notch? That's really what they wanted to know. And another friend, a friend said, well, why don't you call the American Civil Liberties Union? I thought that was pretty good advice. And I did. And I registered a complaint. I had no idea if it was ever going to lead to anything. But a week later, I got a phone call that invited me down to a meeting at a law firm in downtown Boston. I went to the meeting, and Joseph Abramowitz was there, as were 2 other students who had also been evicted from housing for violating the banner policy in support of Joseph. So within a couple of days' time, the 4 of us were co-defendants in a First Amendment lawsuit against Boston University. And the first thing that we needed to do was get a temporary restraining order so that they wouldn't evict us from housing. That was job number 1. And then the second thing was that we needed to prove that they had selectively enforced their own policy on the basis of discrimination against political content. Now, BU said that their banner policy applied to everyone across the board. They also argued that even if they hadn't, that they were exempt from certain laws of the state of Massachusetts because they were a private institution and not a public one, and therefore they were exempt from the First Amendment. A university is arguing this in state court. And so we went around, and they were, I guess maybe the people working for the university, as a lot of hatchet men and yes men aren't the sharpest knives in the drawer. We went around campus even after we had been evicted, and we took pictures of signs and banners that were hanging all over campus. And I'm talking Bruce Springsteen posters, Phi Beta Kappa banners, and yes, Spuds McKenzie the original party animal, and his south of the border cousin, Spuds MacKenzie, the original Fiesta animal. And we entered, these photographs into evidence. And, basically, it was a months-long, drawn-out, dragged-out trial. And the university sent up all their top guys up there, and those guys, they lied through their teeth. I mean, it was just incredible to everyone involved that these guys were going up there and lying about this, uniform enforcement of a policy when that clearly wasn't the case. And ultimately, the judge did rule in our favor. We won an across-the-board victory. It was a months-long process, but we won a resounding victory. They weren't able to kick us out of housing, and though this wasn't our original intent, because of BU's defense, the judge wound up making what turned out to be a historic ruling in the history of the state of Massachusetts, and that is all institutions, public or private, have to adhere to the laws of the Constitution. So that's a radical legal finding, but one which BU was trying to argue their way out of. And so let's fast forward and to the next semester, and still wasn't done with them. I was still carrying a pretty big time grudge. And for one of Howard Zinn, one of his graduate courses, he was really into the idea of doing history that had an impact in the here and now, not writing history for a book that somebody might happen to read in a couple of years or decades down the road, but something that has an immediate impact for now. So I went and I researched the history of civil liberties violations at Boston University and wrote a multi-part series for the school paper. I uncovered evidence that Boston University had more violations of civil liberties, and I'm not just talking free speech, but I'm talking like the general blanket category of human civil liberties in this country, that BU had more violations than any other institution in the 400-year history of the state of Massachusetts, public or private. BU was the #1 violator, and I wrote a multi-part series for the school paper. Everyone got to read it. More shame heaped upon this administration. And I'm going to say that, just in closing, that, I thought to even tell the story tonight because 2 weeks ago, John Silber, the BU president, he also gained some notoriety. He ran for governor of the state of Massachusetts back a few, 15, 20 years ago. Some of you may remember that. Thank God he did not get elected. But he passed away 2 weeks ago. And there was, I read several of the obituaries, and many of them talked about his work in kind of elevating Boston University from a half-assed, broken-down university into a, powerhouse education, higher institute. And then it talked about all that kind of stuff, but nobody talked about the other things, the horrible, evil right-wing shit that he did and was in bed with. And, all I can say is that he died surrounded by, he died at an old age, surrounded by loving, a huge loving family. And that's a lot more than people who lived in El Salvador, South Africa, or Afghanistan, or a number of other places. My graduation speaker was William Rehnquist. I mean, this is like a serious right-wing institution. And he died surrounded at an old age, surrounded by his loved ones. And it's a lot more than anybody who suffered under these various, torture regimes that he provided material and intellectual support for. So, you're not supposed to talk ill about the dead, but even though he died, I'm not sad that he's gone. Thank you very much.
Our next storyteller is a comedian and writer-performer. She is a hilarious and passionate voice for authenticity. Heather Gold appears in colleges, venues, and media across North America, including UCLA, Google, SF Sketchfest, South by Southwest, among others, NPR, and CBS's Definitely Not the Opera. She's best known for her interactive and conversational style, and she has baked over 50,000 cookies with audiences in her hit show, I Look Like an Egg, But I Identify as a Cookie, which was selected by the Oakland Tribune as Best of the Bay and won Curve Magazine's Lesbian Theater Award. Please join me in welcoming Heather Gold.
you, Kara. Hello, Mill Valley. I'm blown away by you, I just have to say. So close to San Francisco yet. First of all, what incredible taste in libraries you have. As you know, I grew up, I was like when a nerd, this is where I hid out. That was like my fort. Let me go to the library. No one will touch me there. So they're like my synagogue, So I feel very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Kara. So let's see, where will I start? Probably I'm just going to guess, like a lot of half of the population, I had a marriage just surprisingly not work. You may have experienced this. One day, you're married, the next day, you're so clearly not going to be married. And in my case, that necessitated leaving quite quickly, and I was living in Long Island, so it was kind of a bonus in a way. I got to leave Long Island. Are you guys from Long Island? No? I was inspired with, yes, you're from there? What's your name? Oh, no? It's all right. You were from there. I was living in Huntington, near Ronkonkoma. I can't even pronounce all the names of the Ronkonkoma, really near Ronkonkoma. I've lost my accent. I used to do really good garlic sauce with garlic knots and Parmesan cheese, everything sauce. And 3 years in Long Island persuaded me that the Bay Area, especially Berkeley, maybe Mill Valley too, but for sure, I thought Berkeley is like the opposite of Long Island. Everyone here just left and went, what's the farthest I can get from Long Island, and it's here, and how can I do everything the opposite of and that sort of explained Berkeley to me. All of a sudden, it seemed less odd to me, including the deli, sadly, the Bay Area. It's a sad state for Jews. I love it, but seriously, so often felt like I was the only Jew in San Francisco, the only one who was not a Buddhist, the only one. The rest of you, I know about you. You're all calm on the outside. So this marriage ends very quickly, and I get to leave the home of anxiety for the world, Long Island. It's the official language there is anxiety, pretty much. But then I have nowhere to live. I have nowhere to live, which I hadn't thought about, and I lived, literally, I think I stayed in about 50 places in 2 years. You're very lucky if you have a home. It was really difficult, and I went from Toronto, where it is very hard to find a place, and then I went to Burning Man, which I hadn't been to in a while, and threw my rings in the fire, which was awesome, and had a revelation I had to be back here, so I came back. And then I was like, San Francisco, I loved you so much, but it has changed in the scant time I've been away, and I can't, So I was looking for a place to live, and in the time in between I'd, fallen in love, and my girlfriend was with me, and so all of a sudden, I'd schlepped her into this, hi, we're going to be in a new place till we can find the next place. So the first place, I was determined to try to not have to move too much, like just one spot that I could search from, so I was very careful on Airbnb. You guys know it? Yeah, what it is? Does anyone not know it? Because I will explain, because I don't want people to have no clue. Someone doesn't know, okay. I usually ask people's names, because if I talk to you again, I just want to know your name, but I don't want you to be humiliated or anything. So you were one of the people who doesn't know? You look very happy, though, in the back with the white shirt. Airbnb. You do know it. You don't know it. Do you want to tell me? You don't have to tell me your name. I'm scared now to ask. What's that? Sonia. And Sonia's happy. Sonia's meditated her way into happiness. Okay. Sonia, it's an internet website where you go and people rent out rooms in their house, sometimes the whole house for when you're not there. And it's very beautifully designed, and the interface is all lovely, and you sort of are like, it's less expensive than a hotel. So if you're going to New York for a couple nights and you want to stay in the East Village and it's $400 for a hotel, you could stay in this beautiful loft for $250 a night, right? It's great if you're in that kind of range financially. But I needed a place for months, because I knew it was going to be a long time to find a place, and I didn't want to have to schlep around anymore. So I find a place, Sonia, on Airbnb. It looks really beautiful. Great pictures. It's in the Haight. I've never lived in the Haight before, but why not? So I Skype with the woman who runs whose place it is, and she seems really nice. She's a sex therapist. I haven't been in San Francisco in a while. I've been in Long Island. I'm like, oh, I'm nostalgic, a sex therapist, burlesque dancer. Oh, thank God. I've missed people like you. I'm sure I'll feel really safe and happy and at home. Oh, and my partner, he composes operettas. I'm like, great. You're totally my creative people. But I was like, the truth is, I mean, part of what's a little bit tricky when you're staying in all these places and your life sort of fell apart is occasionally you need to cry. You can't really. You're like, hi, I'm your guest. But, you have to go for a run and cry and then come back and be a good guest. So she seemed nice. She was a therapist. I'm like, that's a good sign. It'll all be good. And I get there. We get into San Francisco. We go right to the place in the Haight. And she texted me. It's the day before New Year's Eve. I'm not going to be there for a week, but my boyfriend's there. He'll take care of you. Don't worry. But there'll be some company the first night because it's New Year's Eve. So that seems fair company. So we get there. He's like, yeah, I'm going to have friends. They're up all night, and it's pretty loud. But I'm like, it's no big deal. And then I ask him for a parking permit because it's San Francisco. You need a parking permit. And then he looks at me like, why do you want something from me? I mean, I'm paying, by the way, I should mention, all of his rent. And for the whole place, that's something people are starting to do in Airbnb, which is we've got an extra room. We don't use it. We're going to rent it for a lot. Because the average rent, I don't know if any of you have looked for a place, but the average rent in San Francisco, average, is now $2,900 for a one-bedroom apartment. That is not an expensive rent, that is an average rent. Yes, you'll hear where I end up. So I'm in there. He looks at me like, what do you want with a parking permit? I'm like, well, paying you for your place, need a place to park. That seems really irrational and weird to him that I want something from him. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, I'm flexible. I should mention that when he greeted us at the door, he's bald on top, but like by choice, bald by choice. Very long beard, ZZ Top style beard. ZZ Top for the Canadian. And he's wearing a double-breasted kind of leopard dressing gown. And he looks like he weighs about 89 pounds. Half of it's beard. And so he's very angry all the time, but okay. And then he kind of was like, okay, you can have this shelf and this shelf in the fridge. We move our little bags into the bedroom. And you get the distinct feeling he doesn't really want me to be there, let alone me and somebody else. And we go into the washroom, and there's no toilet paper, and there's a little scruffier. The other rooms are beautiful, just like in the photograph, but he likes to hang out in the other rooms. We're supposed to be in this little room. So here we are in the little room, and we kind of go out, and I try to take care of things. Like I'm supposed to go down and get the parking permit, planning everything. Then the first night, I hear this noise, and I think, okay. You can't really see in a tour. I got a video tour of the place on. I thought I was being so smart. I thought out everything. You can't see sound. I hadn't thought about that. And I can hear everything through the wall, everything. And I had noticed when we moved in, he has this giant 4-poster bed. Did mention bald by choice, crazy little, kind of like maybe he would wear an ascot or something. So I hear this repetitive, I don't know how G-rated we have to be. Kara, it's okay, I don't? It seems pretty like an adult library. I hear this like rhythmic sound, and it wouldn't even be that bad if it were the rhythmic sex sound I thought it was. But then I hear this sound that is, sadly, I lived in San Francisco long enough, the flogging sound. Have you ever been woken by the flogging sound at 4 in the morning? There was nothing on the Airbnb thing about flogging in the rules about living in this house. And of course, like a good Bay Area person, I have nothing against flogging. If flogging is what you want, but I have something for sleeping. I'm a fan of sleeping, and there's no consensual listening. I don't get a safe word in the flogging relationship with Baldy. And also, his girlfriend's not there, which is like, oh my God, it was really, my girlfriend woke up and saw me at 3 in the morning, like just wide-eyed. It's very hard to fall back to sleep, with the sound. So then the next night, there was a new sound. It was just a talking sound, but it was still very loud, and I got up in my kind of fuzzy, I have duck pants. That's my counterweight to his cheetah outfit. my fluffy duck pants make me look like a 70-year-old before my time. And I'm like, hey, you know, guy, I know you think it's all chill and you're like with your roommates and it's all fine, but we're not your roommates. We're paying your rent and I can't sleep. And he's sitting there with his girlfriend number 3. Maybe girlfriend number 1 knows about her. I don't know. Could be consensual. Could be part of their rules of their house. Entirely likely. But you need to not do this so I can go to sleep. And he just doesn't want to hear anything from me. He just gives me that really deep, seething hatred that I thought was reserved for like Canadians in traffic. This is how Canadians, you know, I know you don't think they're very aggressive. It all comes out if you go to Canada. Just try and cross the street in Toronto against the light, and you'll get a lot of. It's like the entire defense strategy of Canada is just angry, passive-aggressive staring. So I've had enough of this place. We pack our stuff in the middle of the day the next day and just leave. You know, I'm like, and I get back as much money as I can, and I don't know, I'm still waiting to write my review of The Girlfriend for the other girlfriend on Airbnb. And I tweet to find another place, but I've got another place I have to stay, so I'm tweeting like somewhere I have nowhere to stay, and this guy comes to my rescue, and he's this nerd, and he's great, and he used to work for Next, and I think he's lovely, and we have this great conversation about Steve Jobs, and isn't that awesome, and we're bonded, great, we're going to stay at his place, they have this extra room, he and his wife, how nice, and it's beautiful, it's overlooking the Pacific Ocean, so there we are, we're trying to figure out, once again, I try to be really clear, I need to know, before I go to the next place, that I can stay till I find an apartment, like I need to not move again in another week, because it's a little crazy moving every week. Okay, so we're there, we're in this room, it's like I'm living in a yoga studio, it's just one giant room. Okay, but here's some of the, so he's great, he's so sweet, like, whatever you want, that's great. Now, I'm a little confused by him, because I think half the time he's a trans man. This would reflect sort of the world I've been living in, the queer world. I'm making this very adult now, sorry, is that all right? And I've been confused, like my whole gender relationships to the world have changed sufficiently. I spent a long time in San Francisco, so I don't know a lot of 40-year-old men that buy themselves a grand piano for their 40th birthday for straight guys. But you could just be sweet and Jewish. You know, it's a fine line between Jewish and gay. Very fine. And he's like, great, just live here. And his handwriting like Liberace, this guy. Like, very lovely. And his wife is a whole different thing because she gets to make the decisions, turns out. We negotiated what we thought were the rules with him, and we get there, and she's got a whole different thing. All right, well, first of all, you got to use the refrigerator. We've got one safer. You got to go around. You can't come through the house because I'm a poet, and I work like a maniac. Her words. So you can't come through my office. I'm working. You got to go around. Go around. And so we're walking like around in the cold in the duck pants to the fridge in the garage to get the Brussels sprout or whatever you can make in the rice cooker because there's no kitchen back in the other yoga room that we're living in. You can do a lot of things with a rice cooker, but you know. So, all right. Then she discovers that we write. Well, I'm a writer. Did I tell you I'm a writer? Maybe I could help you. I've published a few pamphlets. Very smart about these things. Also, you should know I did have a former life with women. Which is an interesting way of putting it. I'd never heard it put that way before. So we have sort of a bond, but we're still doing it because we're such renegades. So here you go. And then occasionally she would walk up to my girlfriend and say, because the laundry is also in the garage that we're walking to in the cold. Here's your girlfriend's underwear. Like, I've left the women behind, but I just want you to know, here it is. Can you see it? It's right here. Yes, we can. We're trying to be unobtrusive. We're trying to follow her, like we're eating in the right place, and we're moving things around, and we're trying to help her out when guests are coming because they rent also an Airbnb room downstairs. We're trying to greet the people when they come, but then they have no kitchen. It's very hard when you try to spell out, here's where things are. That's kind of how rules work. Like, we're going to try and spell it all out so we're all clear, but it never seems to work because they change. You know, yes, we'd love to have you here for as long as you need to be here, and you can park your motorcycle in the garage. No, it's incredibly smelly. You need to move it. It's difficult, and having a headache, and he needs to use this room. It's very important. So, okay, so then we have to move again. All right. Where are we going to go? So then we're, like, looking for more and more places. We rent another place in Potrero Hill. where it seems more formal and like an actual agreement. Oh, in the process, before we get to Petroria Hill, we're looking for more and more places, and we come across other women, lesbians, used to be called just women, spelt it 400 ways back in the 80s. When everyone was scared of lesbians. I miss those days. We had so much power then. So we go to stay in this place, or we think we're going to stay in this place because it's huge, and one of them has to move out somewhere, and so it's like a condo. It's a giant building full of elderly Asian people who are the quietest people in the world, and it's full of all kinds of these lovely amenities. Indoor parking, I've never seen such a thing. So we're excited about it. I'm like, I never thought I wanted these things, but now it sounds great. An exercise room, fantastic. I'm happy to be middle-aged all of a sudden. Great. But then she shows us the place. We walk into it. We'd be sharing with her because there's 2 suites on either side, so we sort of just would share the middle. The middle is a living room, but it's really a Pottery Barn catalog. And I'm not exaggerating. It is impeccable. There's not an ounce of dust. There is a artwork on the wall, framed, a giant fork, knife, and spoon. Usually the kind of artwork you see in the lobby of a 2.5-star motel, but here in the living room, maybe a dish with some shapely circular rocks that have all been softened the right way with an ostrich egg on it, the kind of thing you didn't really expect to see in a home. So it turns out she's the manager of the Pottery Barn catalog. She has all their stuff, and it's right there, and it's just put together, and everything's together, and the kitchen is gorgeous. But it's gorgeous because, well, turns out she doesn't really cook so much in it. And yeah, I don't really eat meat. And, oh, you can no problem have meat. I can't see it. I have to not see it, but you can have it somehow. And of course, right away, I'm like, I'm gonna wear the Lady Gaga dress the next day with a couple of. It never occurred to me to show meat to somebody. Like, hi, I want to look at it. But now that I know, it's really a problem. Anyway, she doesn't cook. The place is immaculate because every day she confesses she eats the same thing. Every day. Breakfast, a cup of yogurt. Lunch, 5 cherry tomatoes and a piece of string cheese. Dinner, 1 sweet potato. She has a sense of humor about it, but still, she's like, I could tell you my groceries $52 a week. I'm like, I don't know what to do. That right away, that was it for me. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to cook a brisket in the kitchen of the sweet potato lady and overcome all of my need to offer it 8 times, even though I know you don't want it, but because I think I'm being considerate, because that's how I got raised. So, yeah, that place didn't work out. We end up in a place that looks more like a formal rental, so we think the rules are clear, right? Like, here's the contract, you pay this much money, you stay this long, no problem. And it is, like, pretty set out. It has, there's dishes, there's a sink, they're right there near us, there's a fridge, it's very exciting. At this point, little things become thrilling. But we didn't know about rules for them, so even though it's nice for us, the neighbor, who has this huge house, tends to get up 2 feet away from the wall where we sleep, and it's all Bob Edwards and Sylvia Poggioli, who I love, but it's 6:15 in the morning when you're a comic. It's not. And then they have a 2-year-old, which I didn't know about, and I haven't gotten to have a 2-year-old, but I've been told by other people 2-year-olds this isn't that weird, but it seemed weird because the 2-year-old one day, about a week into this stay, decides that he has to scream all night. From the beginning to the end, never ending, and only for Daddy. I'd love to know what's going on, never for Mommy. Daddy! So again, I don't know, flogging 2-year-old, there's been very little sleep happening. At this point, we just give up on San Francisco. I lived there 12 years. I wanted to live there, but I'm telling you, it was really hard to find a place. And we start looking in the East Bay. We go, yeah, who's from East Bay? Woo! Let's hear it. Berkeley? Oakland. Okay. First we look in Berkeley. We find this place. It's like a brand new, unfinished. It was going to be a condo, but he couldn't sell it, so now it's going to be just a really fancy 2 or 3 little apartments. And it seems really great. It seems so great we can't believe it. And then we meet this guy, at a bar that he owns. Turns out he owns like half of Berkeley. He seems so casual and funky and chill. I forgot about the Berkeley, Long Island to Berkeley thing. I thought he's just like a guy with his hiking boots and his tank top, meeting us in a bar and buying us a drink to be our landlord. And he seems so relaxed, but then he owns like all this housing, and all this housing students must live in, because this is a very grown-up place we're looking at, until we get the contract. And the contract has like 45 points in it. There's rules for everything, including no hair in the toilet, and you can only have 8 people for dinner, no alcohol to minors. I really wasn't planning on me, but if you know, kids come over at Shabbos, no circumcisions in the living room. And no, you have to get written permission to have more than 10 people over. If 9 people are over and coming and one wants to bring someone else, you can't just be like, sure. You have to be like, let me fax my landlord first. So, I mean, it seemed to be getting closer, but we finally ended up in West Oakland. Not West Oakland. Joe tells me it's not officially West Oakland. It's practically Berkeley because it's safe for a white girl. But anyway, it's sort of between Temescal and Piedmont, as my Canadian friend likes to call it. It sounds so luxurious, though, doesn't it? That's the Canadian version of Oakland. And this place is nothing but sun. It's beautiful. It's giant and open. We have this view. You can see the Golden Gate Bridge from it. It's amazing. It's like a third of a place in San Francisco. It costs so much less, which is kind of a way to make things feel inexpensive. Just look first in San Francisco, and they're like, this is a deal. And they're totally reasonable. They're like these wonderful lesbians who've been together for 43 years and met in a high school and math club. How incredible is that? And they're still together, and they were social workers, and I'm like, I just want to like come like make kugel for you and hang out, and are you guys okay? I love them. And then they want to know what they can do for us. So the most amazing thing about it is not only they're like, when half an hour, we're like, we're just going to get an ice cream, but we want it right away. And they just call it, we just like you so much. You can move in. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea how many, really, I lived in 50 places. This was a machaya, which I will translate for the apparently only 8 Gentiles in the room. Just like a miracle. It was a miracle that I got this, that this place was so beautiful, and our landlords were amazing. And the lease was just not much to it at all. And then we got to make rules, which is how I realized, like, we would like to have the broken garage door replaced, which is happening next Wednesday. They're like, bam, boom, new garage door, no problem. And the light broke. Okay, new light. We have our guy. I'll come in next week. So we got to say how we wanted things to be. And they've been happening. It's sort of amazing. So I've learned from this that home is where you get to make the rules. Hopefully not too many. Thank you very much. Just one little thing. If you'd like to see me perform again or read any of my stuff, I've got a mailing list right by the opening table, Heather Gold's mailing list. Also, Joy will be up soon. He's got books too. So please support the artists, and I'd love to hear from you. And thanks to Kara. Kara, I cannot pronounce your whole name. Toronto.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, sign up for her mailing list. I'm so glad you could be here tonight. And please take some time, get a glass of wine. But before you do, just one more reminder, if you love the Mill Valley Library, or if you have a story about libraries, please see Shane in the hallway, and he'll record it on an iPad. And also put your name in the hat to tell a story up here about your best story for a movie idea. Thank you. Okay, while everyone's getting settled, I'm going to start pulling names and have the storytellers from the audience come up and line up next to me. So our first audience member is Lorraine. Lorraine? Maybe Lorraine got stage fright. Lorraine? Stanley? Stanley Finkelstein? Stanley? Uh-oh. Come on, Lorraine and Stanley. Did they go somewhere together? True? True was really excited to tell a story. She spoke to me at the break, but that was not fixed, I promise. and Greg Wilker. So, yay. Thank you, guys. This will be a short lightning round, and so the way it's going to work is you have 2 minutes to tell us a 2-minute story that would make a great movie. And at 2 minutes, Emily has a bell. She's going to ring it, and that means that's the end of your time. Okay? So,
how come we're here together?
You go first, and then Greg's going to go after you.
Hey, Greg. See you later.
Okay.
Bye, Greg.
You want me to sit down?
Yeah. I have a really rough time with microphones, but there's been no beginning to this. It just happened. I was standing over there and somebody said this, and oh boy, did I want to do it. Monday morning, I got on a train, clickety-clack, on my way to Santa Barbara. From there, I was going to Ojai, my hometown where I raised my family. I have not been back in 20 years. It is where I lived with my husband, and it is a very interesting story. Clickety-clack, down we go. I get off, and the first person I meet when I get off the train is Vale. My husband was madly in love with Vale. We went on a camping trip one time, and the whole time we were going backpacking along the camping trip, I was sobbing and writing notes in my journal, trying to get some free attention so that I would enjoy the beautiful mountains. The first person I saw when I got off the train was Vale. Walking along through the town, I come across a guy, his name is David. And David and my husband and I went up into the mountains of Santa Barbara, and there's a time when the light comes right through the Condor Cave and beams on the condor that the Indians painted on the walls. And we were there looking at that, and that David person took my husband away into all kinds of anthropological epiphanies. The next person I meet is the woman who lived next door. And he spent a lot of time with the woman who lived next door. And one time, I was walking from my house to hers, and I imagined, it really happened in my feeling sense, that a huge earthquake the earth opened up on the path between my house and hers, and I went down into the center of the earth, and it wasn't too bad being enveloped by the earth. It was probably better than what I was going to. Another time is my husband had an affair with the woman who was the white, what? Okay, wait, because I see all these people. I've got to do this. We get on the train going back, clickety-clack, going back, and all these people climb onto the train, and there is my husband, not dead anymore, but alive, and he smiles at me, and all the people get on the train.
Tell me your name again.
True Heights.
Thank you, True. That was wonderful. Thank you. And now, Greg. Yay, Greg.
All right. So this is a story about an 8-year-old girl in the back of a station wagon as her parents are fiercely arguing because they're leaving their home in LA that they lost and moving in with the mom's parents. And there's so much anger and hatred, and it's been going on for so long that this 8-year-old girl sneaks out of the car when they've pulled over in Nevada, out in nowhere, and starts walking back to what she knows to be home in LA. And the parents are so furious with each other, they don't notice she's gone. And a sandstorm comes up, and a lone motorcycle rider's riding by, and he sees her, and being the Good Samaritan, he turns around, picks her up, because this is not a right situation. And she won't tell him her truth, so they go off on a 3-day adventure, and these ethereal events seem to come through her, and by these experiences, he heals his relationship with his father and himself, and her being a witness of this realizes she has a family in which she needs to heal her relationship. So Angel goes back home and finds out that the healing's already begun. That's it.
Wow, for the brave audience members, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Our next storyteller definitely has some experience breaking the rules. Joe Loya is an essayist, playwright, TV commentator, and author of a book titled The Man Who Outgrew His Prison Cell, Confessions of a Bank Robber. Yeah, woo! His latest novel is a gory yet fabulously funny prison zombie apocalypse story titled The Red Mile, published under a pseudonym, The Zombie Whisperer, that he can barely say or type without chuckling, and you can buy on Amazon or iTunes. He lives with his wife and 6-year-old daughter in the Bay Area. Please join me in welcoming Joe Loya.
I'm going to use this thing here. Okay, here we go. All right. So, 1988, I was 26 years old. I was driving around Riverside, California, looking for a bank to rob. I'd already robbed like 6 or 7 banks, and I kind of had it figured out by this time. I stopped the note thing. The first time I passed somebody a note, they grabbed the note and they looked at it to read it, which I thought, okay, this is what I want them to do. They need to read the note, which says, give me all the money. We have a bomb, I have a gun, and I underline, give me the money now 3 times. I wanted them to look at the note, except when they looked at the note, the woman did not look up for 15, 20 seconds, because she didn't want to look up. Now I just took her to another territory. So I started moving it around, then she starts pulling it to her, and I'm pulling back. There was this tug of war, and this bank rob, I'm supposed to be all this gravitas and texture up there, and now we're doing this little tug of war that didn't work. So I finally had to say, hey, I'm not kidding, give me the money, pretend, get all menacing and shit. So I had to talk. So the note just was worthless. It was 30 seconds of waste of time. And bank robbery is about time. You got to get in and out, get the loot. So I'm now driving around Riverside, and I drive the street, and I see a bank on the corner. It is the perfect bank. It's close to a freeway. I always want to be near a freeway so I can just get in my car and take off. 3 minutes on the freeway and you're at a junction in Southern California. That means you can just be going this way, that way. I'm giving you guys some tips on bank robbery, but because you look at the kind of crowd that's not going to do it, and we're being mature here. I know you're not going to do it, so I'm not being irresponsible. So I go to this bank, and across the street there's this park. It's a weird thing. It's one of those ones where I could turn left into the street here, but it ends about 50 feet up in a park. And so the park's on both sides, and you could tell that this had probably been a street once, but they decided to close the street off and turn it into connect the parks. So I decided not to park here, but I'm gonna go around the block, and I'm gonna park on the other side facing the bank so that I can run through the park, cross the street, go into the bank, rob it, cross the street, go to the park, and go out. So I park my car, and I get out, and I look around, and it was really weird. It was one of those, if this was a movie, it would be slow motion now, and you would just, the camera would be looking at the people around me, and you would be noting that they were very old. And I'm not insulting age, because I'm getting older myself, but it was clear that they were in decrepitude. They were old shuffling, nurses are near them shuffling, wheelchair. There's one guy getting wheelchair to a bocce court. There's a guy playing a bunch of guys with dominoes. It was old people all over the place. It felt like I just wrote a zombie novel, so this makes sense. It felt like I was in a George Romero zombie movie. Everyone just shuffling real slow. And I realized what this is they're all coming out to the park because it's assisted living center right here, and this is their recreation. So I'm like, oh, this is weird. I get it. Okay, now that's what it is. It's old people. Let me just go through here and ignore them. So I go through it. I cross the street, I get in the bank. When I get in the bank, 3 tellers, and I'm in line. And the woman on my left is a middle-aged white woman. She has a blunt haircut, kind of traditional-looking woman. She has a sweater with geese in flight on it, which just makes sense. The middle woman looks like my Aunt Maggie, minus about 30 years. Very Mexican, a lot of makeup, nails really done. And the woman on the right is a black woman. And I don't know, early to mid 30s. So I stand in line. The black woman, her teller comes open. So I start walking over there, and when I'm walking over, she's really friendly. They're always friendly, like, hey, how you doing, sir? And I put my fanny pack on the counter, and I said, this is a bank robbery. We have a bomb, I have a gun. Give me the money now, or I'll blow your head off. At this point, she just freezes. Now, everybody always, I'm there to terrorize people to get money. That's what this is about. So it's always, okay, let's get them out. And there's protocols for this, actually. They know, no, I mean, not like me, protocols with me and her, but the FBI has protocol. Give them the money. Again, this is teaching you how to rob a bank, but I'm not teaching you how to rob a bank. But the FBI has rules. They say, get this guy out of the bank. Give them what they want, get them out. They're going to get addicted to it, and they will come back, and we have a high, we catch these guys 97.9% of the time. So they want us to get out, give us the money. But this woman doesn't do that. She just panics and freezes. And I'm thinking, oh, I haven't confronted this. And I realized she's just paralyzed with fear. My ferocity is such that it paralyzes a woman with fear. But that's no good for a bank robber. I got to get the loot and get out. So it's like, it's a dance. You want to like menace, but you don't want to paralyze, It's like, So I have clearly failed. But I think, boom, I'm going to improvise, watch me make my moves. I say, open the drawer. And now I realize I put her in automaton robot mode, and I'm like the little software developer. I'm going to make her do what I want her to do, and she's just going to do it. She opens the drawer, and I'm like, okay, this works. Give me the big bills first. And she gives me the big bills. Now, the thing about her trembling is I think she's going to faint because her eyes are so terrified. So I have to keep my eyes locked on her while I'm talking to her, and she's shoving the money to me, and I'm just like, all right, give me the 50s. First give me the 100s, the 50s, the 20s, the 10s. I like go down the list, and then give me the money in the bottom drawer. And she's like terrified, and I'm doing my Bengali thing. I'm really trying to mesmerize, like making her do her, give me. And she's giving me a lot of money, like heavy money, and I'm like, oh man, I'm working this. So finally it stopped. I said, all right, turn around, close the drawer, turn around, walk away, don't look back. As soon as she walks away, I'm like, triumph. And I start walking out of the bank, and it's been the toughest moments of bank robbery I've had. And I've rocked managers in the banks by this point. But this right here was just, I didn't know, that was just tough. So I'm really feeling triumphant when I walk out the bank. Halfway across the block, across the street, the bag goes boom, and it flies out of my hand. It's a fanny pack. Now I'm like, wait, there's no and there's no bomb, so what the hell is this? Why is it exploding out of my hand? I threatened a bomb, we don't have one. I look down on the ground, and in my fanny pack there's a hole this big, and a red plume of smoke just billowing out, ooh, like intense. And I'm like, I gotta pick it up, evidence. So I go to pick it up, and I got cat-like reflexes, and I realize, ooh, tear gas. But not before the tear gas has hit me. I mean, tear gas is invisible, so you don't know what it is, but I get in it so much that it does not blind me, but I'm just like a millisecond longer and I would have been blinded. So what's happening is my eyes are doing this now. In order to see anything, I got to keep closing, and kind of get a vague impression of what's going on. So like, okay, I see the bag, okay, smoke, okay, no cars are coming, I'm cool. I pick up the bag and I'm holding it away from me, and I start walking, and I get in the park, and like I'm telling you, I'm blinking. My eyes are like a camera shutter on speed, I'm like, okay, my car's over here, okay, what's going on? And I look back, and it's like a carnival or something. I got a big red smoke following me, and I'm running. And then all the old people in the park are like, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I run to my car. I got no time for them. I'm just trying to get on. I know the cops are on their way. Blinking. I'm like, okay, my car, vaguely, I see it over there. I finally get to my car. I open the trunk. I open the sports bag, and I just throw the money in. I zip it shut. I close it. I get in the front seat of the car. Now, like I said, instead of turning left in the street to the park, I actually went around, and I'm now parked here with the assisted living place here and the bank on the other side of the park on the other side of the street. And so now I'm changing all my clothes, and I'm blinking, and I'm putting them all in a bag because I would always get rid of them, whatever I was wearing, a couple blocks away. So I'm like changing out, and I change out of my shirts and my sweatshirt and pants, and I got like some topsiders. I was trying to do the collegiate look, topsiders, and Shore UCLA sweatshirts, some Ray-Bans. I know you don't see collegiate right here, but at 26 I could pull it off. So I'm like, now I'm a different guy in there, except the blinking, blinking, blinking thing. The cops pull up to the bank. I can see them. They drive up, all askew in the middle of the road. They all jump out, just like in TV, and they hit the wall, and they're all ready to go in. And I'm sitting here. This is one of those moments where, as a criminal, you run right by it, but later on when I'm in prison, the idiot who's been caught thinking like, I'm kind of a dumbass, like I thought I was all George Clooney, but I was kind of not. So at this moment, I'll never forget it. It's like one of the more embarrassing moments of my life. That's why I'm happy to admit it to you. I'm sitting there blinking, barely got away from the crime scene. They almost got me with a tear gas. I see those cops pull up, and I'm like, what a bunch of dumb fucks. They think I'm in there, haha. And so and I'm the one here like barely can see. So I change my clothes. I turn around, blinking, 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 blinking. I pull on, turn left, turn on a big road, and a police officer, I see him on a motorcycle, coming. So I'm blinking, blinking, blinking under my Ray-Bans. I'm at a red light, and he's across the street, and he passes me real slow, and I'm blinking, 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 blinking. And I just keep going. He goes, and he turns left. I see him in my mirror, so I turn left, and I think he's coming around, because, who stands on the, like this? Somebody either tweaking or somebody who just had tear gas in their eyes. So I turn left, and I'm big. I got a little RX-7, like booking it. I get on the freeway. I take off. Cops never see me. They never come for me. And I go to the next city. I get up at 7-Eleven, and I pouring Perrier water all in my eyes, trying to clear them out. And I'm able to see a little bit better. And I drive home, all defeated and everything. I get home, and I look at the money, and I'm trying to scrub all the ink off the money, and it's just dead. I mean, that stuff really works. It stains it permanently. And then my bag, it's got this big, it's one of those fanny packs that had material that's really strong. So strong, in fact, that I remember when I was in prison the first time that, I know, I'm an idiot. I'm not Clooney. So the first time I was in prison, I was reading a newspaper about a guy who had picked up a dye pack. Now, that woman, it turns out, was super smart. She was not panicked. She was going to hand me a brick of money that any 10-year-old would have looked at and said, that's fake money. I'm not going to take it. She was faking me because she was handing me this thing. It's all glued on the side. It's cut out on the inside. And they put all this stuff in there so it would explode. And I thought, man, that woman was smart. She was clever. I thought I had ran game on her. But here's the thing. I knew about the dye packs because when I was in prison, I'd read that a guy had once picked up a dye pack and he shoved it in the front of his pants. And when it blew off his left nut. Here's the thing. I know, right? The funniest thing is the guy actually tried to sue Bank of America. That's the end of my story. Thank you very much. That's fun.
Thank you so much, Joe. Actually, it was our next storyteller who put me in touch with Joe to come tell a story. And he said, he wrote a book. I think he might be good for the theme, breaking the rules. Little did I know how perfect he would be. So our next storyteller, I felt a little bit like Anthony did when he met with Noam Chomsky, and Noam Chomsky agreed to come and meet with him. For fans of The Moth, you probably know him. He is a writer, performer, and 5-time Moth Story Slam winner, and 2-time Moth Grand Slam champion. His work has been featured on McSweeney's, College Humor, and Risk. Please join me in welcoming Madison Perry.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for comparing me to Noam Chomsky. I just learned how to pronounce his name like 2 years ago, so that's flattering. I'll tell you right now, I did not break any rules as big as Joe. The closest I came is one time I walked out of a bank with one of their pens, and I returned it. And in my defense, it should have been chained down like that. I wouldn't have taken it then. So when I was in college, I dated the same girl for almost all of college, 3.5 years. And we broke up when we graduated. We kind of went on different life paths. And it was sad because she was my first real girlfriend, my first love. But I was also excited to be single. Because guys are the most delusional about their powers over the opposite sex right when they break up with a girl. Because when we're with a girl, we're like, all these women want to have sex with me, but they can't because I'm taken. That's what we like. So when we break up, we're like, my life's about to become a softcore pornography movie, basically. Like, I hope I can order a pizza without the girl trying to have. That's what we assume because we're dumb. And so I was also excited because I'd gotten a job working in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is this little town up in Alaska, and it's on the cruise ship route. And I'd got a job doing day tours for the tourists that would come off the boat, and I was going to run the Alaskan Jeep Safari Adventure. Yeah, it sounds pretty impressive. Problem is, safari makes people think, oh, we're going to see a lot of animals. And we never saw any animals. People will be like, are we going to see bears today? I'd be like, there's a good chance, sir. No. And so it was this great job, and it was a super fun summer. But if you want your life to be a softcore porn movie, Alaska is not the place to go. There's not many women there. There are 8. That's it. I got there a couple weeks into the season because of graduation, and every pretty girl was taken. Like, if you saw a pretty girl in this town, there was a guy with his arm around her, because he knew if he left, he would lose his turn. Like, he'd be like, oh, I just went to get okay, I get it, and he'd walk off. So just to give you an idea, like, how slim the pickings were, one day I saw a bar fight between 2 fishermen over a woman that was missing 40% of her teeth and was wearing a cape. 2 grown men entered into physical combat over a woman best described as a witch pirate. Okay, that was the girl situation up there. I had this neighbor. He was this old native Alaskan. He was on unemployment, or fun employment, as he called it. He'd just left Walmart because, in his words, it had gotten too political over there. And he explained to me, he said, Madison, you got to lower your standards when you're up here. The general rule is if a woman's eyes are no further apart than the head of a hammer, she's fair game. So I was like, I'll keep that in mind. So that was where I was at. And but I had this one ray of hope, and her name was Courtney. And she was this beautiful girl, brunette hair, olive skin, beautiful eyes, and we got along really well. A lot of times after work, we'd go down to this bar, and it had a deck off the back that was over the ocean, and we'd watch eagles swoop salmon out of the ocean, and it was amazing, and we got along really well. She had a great sense of humor, by which I mean she thought I was funny. That's really what guys mean when we say we want a girl with a great sense of humor. Just laugh at our jokes. So it's great. But the problem was she was single for a reason. She'd just gotten out of a very painful relationship, wanted to stay single. And I knew she wouldn't change her mind about this because being a single, attractive woman in Alaska is awesome. It's like having diplomatic immunity. You can do anything you want. Like, if she wanted a beer, she wouldn't buy a beer. She would go stand in the vicinity of the bar. And within 2 minutes, someone would be like, can I buy you a beer? And she'd say yes. And sometimes she would get me a beer also using this method. She'd be like, will you buy one for my friend Madison as well? And they'd get excited because Madison is the name of hot chicks normally. So they'd buy her 2 beers, and she'd take them back to the table and be like, oh, there's a guy over there. It's not a hot chick at all. So this was the life for her. Like, you can just they're so rare up there. This is how you get Sarah Palin, okay? It's this effect. It's the Palin effect. It's real. And so... And not only did she like being single, you think, well, I could get in there for a night or 2 maybe, but the guys I was competing with, like, I am physiologically a man, but I was not a man. You know what I mean? Like, these were lumberjacks and fishermen and people working on oil rigs. I met one guy, his job title was literally bear wrangler. His job was to patrol a campsite and make sure bears didn't come around. Okay, she for a while dated a guy. He worked in the local lumberjack show. It's like you see him on ESPN2. They chop down things and saw them, and it's a competition. So this is a guy who has the muscles and skills of a lumberjack, but he's too good-looking to be off in the woods. Like, at some point, his boss is like, no, we cannot waste you out there. We need you in front of people. You out in the woods, you'll just turn all the guys gay. We need you here performing for the tourists. So these are the kind of guys I'm competing with, but I didn't care. supply and demand ratio was not in my favor. I really liked Courtney. I kept going after her, and I just kept following around, and then we'd hang out. And that's how I became her non-sexual boyfriend. And a non-sexual boyfriend is a lot like a real boyfriend. You go to dinner, you go to movies, you're a shoulder to cry on, you tell her she's beautiful, but at 10:30 p.m. at night, you clock out, and another guy clocks in for the overnight shift. Yeah. That's really the best shift. That's a really good shift, the overnight one. It's kind of like being a non-sexual boyfriend. It's kind of like competing in the Special Olympics. You run all the same races, but instead of a real gold medal, you get a lot of hugs. You get told how special you are. Just wonderful. So I just went on all summer. I'd follow around like a puppy dog. I'd be like, oh, I really like you. You're great. And she'd be like, you're great too. You're so funny. I'd like to marry a guy like you. I mean, tonight I'm going to climb on the back of Babe the Blue Ox and go home with Paul Bunyan. But you're great. You're great. And she really did like me. She was friends. But, you know, I was a guy, and I wanted to be more than friends. So the end of the summer came. It's getting closer, a few weeks away. I was like, I gotta be firm. I gotta make a move. I gotta tell her how I feel. And so we're at a bar one night, and I am, as usual, watching her purse. Yeah, it's one of the big jobs of a non-sexual boyfriend. And I'm like, this is her home base. She's gonna come back here, and when she does, I'm gonna lay down some game. So she came back at some point, and I cornered her, and I explained to her why we should hook up for 30 minutes. I didn't so much as seduce her as I just filibustered. I just, like, I'm gonna be like, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. I'll start talking, and I'm not stopping until she agrees. I'm like, we're attracted to each other. We're friends. We like each other's company. And I don't have the pecs of a lumberjack, but I'll make up for it in effort. I swear. And I'm just explaining all this stuff to her. And finally she agreed to go home with me. It wasn't so much like she was excited. She was just like, your case has no holes in it. The defense rests. So we go back to my place, and I'm sorry to get graphic in a library, but we made out. With our tongues in the French style, okay? So pretty hot and heavy, all the clothes on, but pretty hot and heavy making out, and we don't have sex, but as we're going to sleep, I'm like, I'm going to be upgraded to sexual boyfriend pretty soon here, you know, and I'm imagining our relationships. We'll take night hikes to see the northern lights and make love underneath them, and we'll go sea kayaking and see humpback whales and make love on top of them, and it's going to be amazing, this relationship. And so she wakes up the next morning, look into each other's eyes, and she says, I was so drunk last night. Yeah, that's never a good thing to start with, because no one ever ends that sentence with, but surprisingly, I made some great decisions that I stand behind this morning. Like, that's never how I was so drunk last night ends. So she got up and she left, and there's the biggest rule of being a non-sexual boyfriend is that you don't have sex with them. You don't try to have sex with them. That's the job of the sexual boyfriend, and I don't want to get into the details. It's a union thing. But you are not allowed, as a non-sexual, you cannot try that. It makes things awkward. So there's about 3 weeks left in the season, and we stopped hanging out because it was weird now. And we didn't. She got a ride from someone else to work. We stopped going to the bar and sitting on the porch and watching eagles, and it was really sad. And so at the end of the season, you take a ferry from Alaska down to Washington, and it's a 36-hour ferry. It's overnight. And so at the end of the night, we're all in the bar drinking, and we ended up together. And I said, I think you kept me around all summer because you liked me chasing you, I said. And she said, no, I hung out with you because you're my friend, and I liked being friends with you. And then she went to bed. And at that point, I was like, well, that's bullshit. Come on. But I got back to Washington, and I got in my car, and I drove off. And in this island I was on, there was just one 2-lane road. You couldn't go more than 45 miles per hour. And so now I'm on this interstate, and it's 5 lanes in either direction, and there's cars everywhere. I'm driving 70 miles an hour, and it's just like, it's super intense, and it's stressing me out, and I'm about to pull off and just take a breather, and this convertible drives by, and the top's down, and has this beautiful woman. She's blonde, hair blonde, it's gorgeous. And I think, there's a lot of cars here, but probably 50% of them have women in them. And then I suddenly realized, Courtney is no longer the girl, she is a girl that it didn't work out with. And as time went on, she stopped being the girl that wouldn't have sex with me and became the girl who was a really good friend, and it was a big part of an awesome summer. in Alaska. So I really appreciate she got married like a year later. So we're not getting married when we're both single someday. But that's fine. She's a great friend. I resolved to try and appreciate the people around me for what they were and not what they weren't. And I'm almost always successful at that with women. I'm Madison. That's my story. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Madison. We were so lucky for you to join us tonight, as well as all the other storytellers, and thank you very much for being here. Our next Naked Truth is in February, so I hope you'll join us. Thank you.